Get ready for the ultimate holiday snap because SpaceX is planning to pull off the first ever spacewalk with a pretty excited civilian crew of space tourists. In fact, it isn't even that far away. Yep, expected as early as December of this year. And of course, the brains behind the first commercial spacewalk had to be Elon Musk. Excited? Well, so are we. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. First off, how did it all start? Well, not too long ago, SpaceX announced its plan for the so-called Polaris program that's going to demonstrate new wave technologies, do some extensive research, and in the end, hopefully culminating in the first flight of SpaceX's Starship with humans on board. And among many others set for the mission, we've got Jarek Isaacman, who you might remember as the billionaire who led the first all-private citizen crew to orbit back in 2021. In fact, he's also signed up for 3 more private spaceflight missions with SpaceX. Now, there's no exact date for the set of blastoff just yet, but we can tell that they're hoping to launch this first mission, Polaris Dawn, no earlier than the end of the year. In fact, the actual plan is to launch a Dragon capsule on board a Falcon 9 rocket from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida to somehow reach an orbit that's actually higher than any other Dragon missile to date. Pretty exciting, huh? Now, the crew's gonna spend up to 5 days in orbit, during which they're gonna try to carry out the first ever commercial spacewalk where the astronauts are gonna leave the capsule to go ahead and float freely in space. But just for their safety, we're going to assume that they're hopefully going to be attached by a tether. But that's not all to this risky feat. Other than the risky yet exciting spacewalk, the astronauts are also going to participate in a study on the effect of spaceflight on the human body. In fact, it's also going to test Starlink's laser-based communications in space. And just as Elon Musk promised us back in September of 2021, right after the Inspiration 4 mission, the Dragon spacecraft's also going to have free Wi-Fi this time. Now, Isaacman, the man who confirmed his seats on a bunch of their missions too, will be joined by Scott Kidd Poteet, who's actually a retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, and 2 SpaceX employees, Anna Menon and Sarah Gillis. Moving on, the New York Times reports that Isaacman actually refused to disclose how much he's paying for the flights publicly, but he did say that they will raise money for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital in Tennessee. Ring a bell? Yeah, that's exactly what the first all-civilian flight did back in September 2021. Now there have been hundreds of spacewalks, if we're counting, from Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov, who was launched into Earth orbit and exited his spacecraft to become the first ever human to walk in space back in March 1965. In fact, as of February 15, 2022, there have been 246 spacewalks outside of the International Space Station. At least that's what NASA records say. And if we're looking into other space stations and spacecraft, we've got a bunch of other spacewalks to add as well. Either way, all of these brave ventures have always been carried out by professional astronauts who've trained specifically for this. So if SpaceX's civilian spacewalks is also a success, it's going to mark yet another bold step of progress for space tourism. Moving on, it looks like SpaceX Polaris Dawn is set to happen in December. Yep, reports confirmed that Jared Isaacman, along with 3 other civilians, will embark on a historical mission to space for 5 days. Now, SpaceX's Polaris Dawn got some new updates regarding the reports, and Space News confirmed that there are definitely plans to launch the mission before 2022 ends. But there aren't any official confirmations about this new mission for December from SpaceX, but there are definitely some speculations about its upcoming flight. In fact, a previous tweet by Jared Isaacman actually focuses on the training and preparations that he and the Polaris Dawn team are taking care of for the upcoming launch that we're all excited about. So even if it's December or not, the commercial spacewalk is going to happen sooner than you think. In fact, Isaacman also revealed in an expo that December is definitely the target date for the Polaris Dawn mission and its upcoming spacewalk for the team. So while they've set their goals with Elon Musk's high ambitions, it's fair to say that we're pretty excited for this historic moment. Now, let's talk about SpaceX and its civilian missions. Basically, in a spacewalk, astronauts are going to get out of their vessels and float around in space. Now, spacewalks are usually reserved for trained and professional astronauts on the International Space Station, but NASA said that different missions are going to focus on spacewalks outside and far from the International Space Station. And the Polaris Dawn mission is actually going to have its spacewalks at a pretty high orbital altitude. Now, one of the most famous pieces of information, and the one we're excited about, is SpaceX's future missions bringing civilians to space. And that's also going to include people who probably won't have any background in actual space activities or some sort of related specializations. Yet they're going to be able to go to the great beyond. Now, earlier, it was actually the inspiration for the mission that was launched back in September 2021 that marked a historic event for the world. But the talks about ventures and plans to continue human space flights continued. And now we're seeing plans of bringing selected participants to space under the Polaris program from the company. In fact, Musk previously said that it would be aboard the reusable spacecraft, specifically the Starship, and they're hoping to bring on many missions for the world's ventures. Now, of course, there's definitely a massive focus that SpaceX and its known entities are going to be bringing to the Polaris Dawn. And in fact, the entire program. There's going to be a lot of training and preparation for the upcoming launch. Up next, here are some Polaris Dawn mission details. Now, as we mentioned earlier, it's going to be the first of Isaacman's 3 distinct crewed launches set ahead for him. And with this mission, SpaceX are hoping to increase knowledge about human health during the long-duration space flights they've got planned for the future. And this is going to include some research in the orbit, and Polaris Dawn's official website actually mentioned that the research crew members are going to study a bunch of different topics. And that's going to include studying the effects of space radiation on human biological systems, and even employing ultrasonography to monitor, detect, and even quantify the venous gas emboli that are linked to human decompression sickness. And with that said, SpaceX has collaborated with Translational Study Institute for Space Health, the Space Technologies Lab at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and BioServe Space Technologies at the University of Colorado Boulder to take the next step and carry out the scientific research they've planned. In fact, SpaceX even collaborated on the research with the U.S. Air Force Academy, Weill Cornell Medicine, and the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and even the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. So there are definitely a lot of brains working on making this mission and research successful. Having said that, the most important scientific contributions right now are the mission's first ever commercial spacewalk and their research and testing on the Starlink laser-based communications in space. Also, they're trying to achieve a record high orbital altitude. The Polaris Dawn team's actually trying to break this mold by carrying out their intended spacewalk from a relatively tiny SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule that's orbiting Earth, and the crew's going to have to reach a record high orbital altitude for that. Anna Menon says that there's going to be tons of new development happening to support that. In fact, to achieve this lofty goal, the team's going to have to upgrade their life support systems on the Crew Dragon spacecraft. With that said, she added that the suit development that's actually happening for this mission is definitely going to help them learn, and they're going to be able to build on this foundation to go to the moon and ultimately even Mars. And Sarah Gillis says that it's a development program, so that's going to include an entirely new training program that they're still developing. It looks like they're definitely going to learn a lot along the way, which in turn will be even more beneficial for mankind. Adding to that, the team's also aiming to fly Crew Dragon in orbit with an apogee of 1,400 kilometers. That's the highest for a crewed mission in Earth orbit, and they're also going to perform trial communications with SpaceX's Starlink satellite constellation. Either way, whatever happens, we know one thing for sure: Polaris Dawn is going to be a great learning experience and answer a lot of unanswered questions that we've got. And Isaacman says that to get there, we're going to need to learn an awful lot along the way, but that's worth it, right? If successful, this could literally become a legendary event to remember for years. And in the end, the advancement of science is what it's really all about. And that's a wrap for this video. How excited are you for the first ever commercial spacewalk in December? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.